Good morning. Welcome to the Utah State Board of Education American Rescue Plan Act After School and Summer Funding Grant Orientation Meeting. This funding is to support accelerated learning and after school and summer programming. Next slide, please. My name is Robert Palmer. I oversee the programmatic side of this grant, as well as the Partnerships for Student Success grant, the Intergenerational Poverty grant, and the Program Quality Enhancement grant here at Utah State Board of Education. My colleague, Camille Sheik, oversees the fiscal side of this grant. She also oversees the 21st Century grant here at Utah State Board of Education as well. Next slide, please. Sarah Harward is here with us today. She is our CARES Team Education Specialist. Next slide. And our fiscal staff, Tammy Long, our Compliance Manager, and Marilee Windle, our Fiscal Monitor. Next slide, please. The purpose of today's meeting is to provide grantees an overview of funding source and grant requirements. Next slide. The agenda for the day. We just got through our introductions. We'll next go through the overview of the funding of the American Rescue Plan Act and after school and summer programming. We'll go through the programmatic requirements and the fiscal requirements. Next slide, please. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Harward to go through the background information on this grant. Sarah.
Thank you, Robert. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Harward. I'm the CARES Educational Specialist. So to give you some background information on the American Rescue Plan. So this was signed into law back on March 11th, 2021, and gave us some additional funding, our third round of funding for the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. So we refer to this as either ESSER 3 or ARP ESSER. Under the ESSER 3 award, the awards were given to state education agencies in the same proportion as each state received funds under the Part A, Title I of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Next slide, please. Some additional background information. So USPE awarded these funds by application. So when we received these American Rescue Plan funds at our state, a portion was designated by the federal government for evidence-based summer enrichment programs, 1% for that, and 1% of the total award for evidence-based comprehensive after-school programs. So you'll see 1% is just over $6 million for each of those awards designated for our summer and after-school programs. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Sarah. The goal of set-aside funding is to utilize set-aside funding to develop and implement, supplement, enhance, or extend after-school and summer programming. We support accelerated learning, identify students impacted by the coronavirus pandemic in need of support for both academic and social emotional learning using evidence-based curriculum, tools, and resources. Build relationships between local education agencies and community-based organizations or local businesses. Provide equitable access for students, minimal or no fees. Program needs to prioritize engagement of the students group listed in the application document. Participate in continuous quality improvement activities, including self-assessment tool and program observations. Next slide, please. Programmatic requirements. All programming must utilize evidence-based curriculum, tools, and resources and provide a balance of academic and enrichment activities, including social and emotional learning activities. Minimum of 10 students served on an average daily basis. For school year programming, minimum of 10 hours per week and 32 weeks during the school year. For summer programming, minimum of 20 hours per week and 6 weeks, which can be non-consecutive during summer months. Support from a certified teacher. All staff working 10 or more hours must receive a minimum of 20 hours of professional learning and training per year. Implement family engagement activities. Participate in technical assistant activities with Utah After School Network or designee, including program observation. Next slide, please. The reporting dates. The Utah After School Network Quality Tool and Action Plan are due November 18th, 2022. Holly Phelps is here from the Utah After School Network to talk a little bit more about that towards the end of our program today. Mid-year report will be due in January 20th through a Qualtrics link, as will an annual report, which will be due May 19th, 2023. Next slide, please. Evidence-based practices is a key component of this grant program. The academic enrichment activities based on evidence-based practices are tied to supporting students' academic needs, including learning loss related to the coronavirus pandemic. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah Harvard to go for our fiscal information requirements. Sarah.
Thank you. All right, so as far as our fiscal requirements, so this ARP ESSER funds is a 3-year grant. This funding, the program period ends September 30th, 2024. So we have a couple years to utilize these funds, which is great, but we also need to be thoughtful as we use them. All programs must have a sliding fee scale with an advertised free program option. Additionally, please keep a time and effort policy and time and effort records. All reimbursement requests that we're going to do with these funds require a detailed ledger and time and effort documentation. So those items are going to be important as you're receiving reimbursement for these funds. If you have any questions on those, please feel free to contact me, Tammy, Marilee, or Robert. Next slide, please. So as far as allowable and unallowable costs, so pretty good list on each side, but for your allowable costs, this is going to be your staff costs, supplies, materials, and equipment for your summer and after school programs, professional development and training, cell phone usage, mileage, evaluation costs, pre-approved field trips with a direct link to the program goals and outcomes, and then some food costs. Not all food costs are allowable, but some. We highly recommend coordinating with your child nutrition program to participate in the reimbursement program, and healthy snacks and dinners are allowable. Family engagement activities with a direct link to student learning, and then pre-approval is required for any out-of-state or overnight travel. Unallowable costs, shorter list, but still important. This is going to be your capital expenses, taxes on purchases, anything considered entertainment, then food for meetings and or trainings, candy, soda, incentives, toys, gift cards not allowable, and then gaming systems. If you have questions on what is allowable and what is not, how you can and can't spend your funds, we highly encourage you to ask before you spend the funds. Feel free to reach out to me, Robert, Tammy, Marilee. We're happy to help you with that. But we want to make sure that you're spending these funds in an allowable fashion. So please reach out with any questions. Next slide, please. As far as our Utah Grants Management System, this is where we're going to do the whole process for this summer and after school grants. So the Utah Grants Management System, this is what replaced our Utah Consolidated application. So you might have been in it already, but it might be new to you. No worries, we're here to help with all of it. So all phases of this grant management are going to be in this system. So this includes your application, your award, your reimbursements, and any budget changes, and then monitoring. So we have included some links to our Utah Grants website here, and then some information and guides to help you as you're working through the different processes in the system. They're a great resource if you're doing things for the first time or need a reminder. We've got our user guide, our reimbursement submission guide, and then your budget change guide. Additionally, if you need to add someone in your profile in the system, we've got our instructions for adding users. It is important that you have 2 separate people in this system because all the approvals in the system require 2 individuals in the 2-step approval process. So you need a creator and internal approval, and these must be 2 separate people. 2 separate emails, got to be different people. So your creator is going to be the one to create the reimbursement request, send it on to the internal approver in your organization. Then after it's approved by those 2 people, then it comes to USBE. Next slide, please. Just some helpful reminders and tips as far as the USBE only processes reimbursements once a month. And so you're going to want to make sure you submit your reimbursement request within the first week of each month. Typically by the 7th, 8th, or 9th, it needs to be to USBE, which means your creator needs to be done and sent it to the internal approval approver, and that internal approval needs to be done before that date. We did include at the bottom of the slide a link to our grant reimbursement schedule for fiscal year 2023. So please be sure to look at that, add it to your calendars. You're going to want to make sure you get those in on time. If we don't receive it by that date, you'll have to wait till the next month to receive your payment. Again, it requires a two-step approval process for any reimbursements. Your creator submits to the internal approver, and then the internal approver reviews and submits to USBE. Please remember that you must submit and receive approval for any budget changes before you submit a reimbursement request. So you'll get into your application and you'll set up your budget table of what's going to go where. If you need to make any changes, that needs to happen before you can do a reimbursement request. And then you can't submit a reimbursement. Once you submitted the reimbursement request to USBE, it's going to go through 4 staff here at the agency. Me, Tammy, Marilee, our people who do a review, as well as we have financial staff who review it. So that's why it's important to get it in by the first week so that we have time to get that approved. But you also, you cannot submit another reimbursement until your first reimbursement request is approved by all 4 USBE staff. So this is what's going to make it difficult to submit 2 reimbursements in a month. So it's typically you're going to do about 1 a month. So be sure to get as much on there as you can so that you can receive your reimbursements. And if you have any questions, again, about the Utah grant system, we have a help desk, as well as you can reach out to any of us here on the call. Next slide, please. All right, as far as reimbursement documentation that you're going to want to include in the Utah Grants Management System, these items are going to be required for you to receive reimbursement in that system. So we recommend a quarterly schedule, but a monthly schedule is preferred just because of the way the finances are set up. As far as the documentation for your reimbursements, we're going to need a detailed ledger and full documentation, all your receipts and your invoices for things you purchased so that we can verify that they're allowable, and then as well as your time and effort documentation. So full reimbursement documentation needed. And I know that sounds like a lot up front, but the idea with this is if we get it all up front, we're going to avoid any unallowable costs purchased or be prepared for any audits that should happen. So it's on the front end trying to get it all together to make it easier on any back end items. Just one more thing about any budget changes. So like I said, you're going to go in with your application, create your budget table. If you're going to make any budget changes more than 10% from any line item in the Utah Grants Management System, as you're making those changes in your budget revision, if it's over 10%, you will need to include justification as to why it's changing, if you're spending it on something different, you will include that justification. And that's all laid out in the instructions that I mentioned earlier that are linked in this slide about doing a budget change. Next slide, please. All right, back to Robert.
Thank you, Sarah. For monitoring this year, virtual monitoring will be via Microsoft Teams meeting. We'll go through the monitoring tool that you have received from USBE, and we will be scheduling those in January of 2023. We will also be doing program site visits, which are in person to see a program. And data sharing documentation, we will be sending out shortly, and those will be due back October 7th, 2022 as well. Next slide, please. All right, we are so fortunate to have Holly Phillips here from the Utah After School Network, who is our technical assistance provider for this grant. Holly.
Thank you, Robert. Hi, everybody. Holly Phillips. I am the Director of Operations with the Utah After School Network. So we are a nonprofit organization that was established in 2005 by a consortium of after-school practitioners, youth advocates, and leaders from state agencies. We are a statewide agency ourselves, and we work to ensure that Utah's children have high-quality after-school programs that keep them engaged, learning, and safe. We assist after-school teams in building quality programs by mentoring staff, facilitating professional learning, and collaborating on creating a model of best practices for after school statewide. We equip the after school community with tools to improve program quality, build leadership capacity, and ensure that equitable access to after school programs in Utah is happening. Next slide, please. All right, here's what we do in a nutshell. We have 3 big buckets of work that all point towards supporting high quality programming. The first one, when it comes to supporting programs, we offer things like observations, lots and lots of good technical support and assistance. We also have our quality tool, which I'll talk a little bit more here in a minute. For staff, we provide a large variety of professional learning opportunities. And for after school as a whole, we have a lot of policy and advocacy work that we do. Next slide. All right, so when it comes to supporting programs, here are 3 big topics that we can help your organizations with. Consulting, coaching, we're happy to provide presentations. We have lots of resources to share. We love to facilitate trainings. Next slide. Here's our team. Here are the out of school time specialists out of our office. Some of these faces might look very familiar to you, and we also have a few new faces. Some of you may be getting the same specialists that you have been working with last year. Others, you might get someone new. But this is a great team of folks who's really here to assist you and your programs moving forward this year. Next slide. Here's our model when it comes to providing technical assistance. We believe that when we as an organization really do our homework, we read up and are current on research, we collect lots and lots of data, we're able to provide feedback and advocate for more funding, that trickles down and influences our technical assistance and our professional development. And from there, we know that those initiatives can influence staff outcomes. And we also believe that influencing staff outcomes will trickle down into those amazing youth outcomes. So that's where we see ourselves fitting into the system. Next slide, please. Here's our technical assistance model, or year at a glance. So thinking about from the start to the end of the school year, what you can expect working with the Utah After School Network. Right now, in the fall, it's a lot of assessments and implementation plan creation. So we have things like the quality tool, our observations will be beginning. We have the Wellbeing Institute that's kicking off. And then that leads us into the middle of the year where we're doing a lot of support around your implementation of your goals. We can provide training and coaching, resources, great networking opportunities to talk amongst different organizations. And then as we enter into the end of the year, we really are here to help with your assessments and your outcomes, doing follow-up, providing feedback. The program information form is due this time of year. So that's really what we're looking at a glance for this coming school year. Next slide. All right, so 2 documents that have already been mentioned a couple times, but let's dive a little bit deeper into them. The quality self-assessment tool is a tool that's completed at the beginning of the year that really is going to help your program gauge quality and set continuous improvement goals for the year. So it's important that this happen in the fall. And actually, you might be realizing that we bumped that data just a tiny bit because we think it's so important to have this established in the fall so that you can work on it the rest of the school year. So it's going to be due this year on November 18th. And I also want to point out, it's not new this year, it was new last year. But there's 5 different areas to the quality tool now. We've included continuous quality improvement because we think that that's just such an important component of program quality. So you'll want to be mindful of that. The second big form out of our office is the program information form, which won't officially open for you to submit your data until April 1st. It'll remain open until May 31st of 2023. But we do have a PDF that's available right now on our website. So I recommend taking and downloading that document and at least giving it a once over as you start your program this year. We have edited that document, taken out, added in some different questions. So wouldn't want any surprises to happen in the spring. So definitely download that document and take a look at it. Both of these items can be found on our website, utahafterschool.org/quality. Next slide, please. When it comes to supporting staff, we have a variety of amazing professional learning opportunities coming up this year. First and foremost, I'm so excited. If you haven't heard the news yet, I'll shout it out. Jumpstart is in person this year, and we're so excited. It's going to be back in Ogden, November 4th and 5th. So you'll definitely want to make sure that your teams are registered for that event. Recharge this year is going to stay virtual. So that one's happening on February 24th, and that will be online. Our Wellbeing Institute is kicking off here soon on October 5th. So if you were planning on sending your team virtually to the Wellbeing Institute this year, you'll want to get your team signed up soon. And then, of course, we have our e-learning ongoing learning platform. All of this information plus more can be found again on our website, utahafterschool.org/calendar. Next slide. When it comes to supporting staff, we also have helped to set up regional networks. So these are great collaborative opportunities for peer-to-peer, organization-to-organization interactions. Some of the great big topics that have been tackled in regional networks include staff retention and training, always a hot topic, collaborating on policy efforts and events like Lights On, doing lots of brainstorming and networking. So if you are interested in learning more about regional networks, you can go on our website, utahafterschool.org/regional networks, or you can email myself or any of the specialists on my team who can give you more specific information for the network in your region. Next slide. Finally, that third bucket of work that we have out of our office is supporting after school as a whole with advocacy and policy efforts. So you can see we participate in a variety of different efforts throughout the year. There's two that I want to highlight that are on this page. Maybe if you still have your calendar out, you can write these dates down. We are so excited. We are going to be back in person next year for After School Day on the Hill. It's going to be on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2023. More information to come. And then you'll also want to take note that this year, Lights On After School is going to be on October 20th, 2022. And if you want more information about Lights On, you can Google it, and information from the After School Alliance will pop up to give you many more details on that terrific event that's coming up fast here in October. Next slide. Our website is a treasure trove of information, so definitely bookmark it on your computer, return to it often. Not only do we have information on our quality tool, program information form, our professional learning events, but we also have a resource library. So family engagement, for example, we have great resources, tips and tricks on that. We have a great page on school day and after school alignment. So if that is something that resonates with you, be sure to stop by that page and check out all of our tools and resources. So it's definitely a place that you'll want to encourage your staff to spend some time getting familiar with as this school year is starting off. Next slide. To wrap up, here's our contact information. Our website, which I've mentioned a couple of times now. You can always email info@utahafterschool.org. I'm Holly P. at utahafterschool.org, or you certainly can reach out to your specialist. And then look for us on social media and sign up for our newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Please reach out with any questions to anyone on our staff. Our contact information is within this presentation. Thank you so much.